You're listening to 89.1 FM WNYU Against the Vile Grain. I have on the phone with me here Isaac Tyler of Closer Bones. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, let's dive right into it. So,
Yeah.
you've directed most of your abrasive ire towards the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society, better known as the Jehovah's Witnesses. On your 2019 album, The Destroying Angel, you donated proceeds to the Netherlands-based group Reclaimed Voices, who seek to change Jehovah's Witnesses policies that silence cases of sexual abuse. The album is the first in the Apostate Electronic series, and I've had the privilege of listening to the upcoming fourth entry, Agape, and the fifth entry to the series, Living a Nightmare Road to Disaster. Can you tell me what the goal or purpose of the Apostate Electronic series is?
Yeah, so I started making noise as a form of self-therapy after leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. I was 22 when I left, fall 2012. And when I started making noise, it was more just dealing with, day-to-day emotions of isolation, depression, anxiety, stuff like that. And then I took a few years off after my first album, Heimel, and when I jumped back in to record The Destroying Angel, I had done a few other things in between. But when I started in on The Destroying Angel, it was planned to just be one album about growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses and leaving. And then as I started working on it more, I realized just how much damage the organization did, not only to me, my mental state, but also to thousands and thousands of other people across the world. So I was probably about halfway through working on The Destroying Angel. I was like, I'm going to have more material than I know what to do with. I'm going to have more topics and more stuff to break down, more aspects of the sinister nature of the witnesses to break down and both work through for my own mental well-being, but also to bring awareness to basically what is a cult.
Why do you think it might be important for others to hear about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the abuse that goes on there?
Well, I think a lot of the perspectives that I heard growing up about the Jehovah's Witnesses were not understanding of how the organization worked. People just thought they were, a little Christian sect that went door to door knocking on people's doors to talk to them about the Bible, and they dressed nicely and whatever. But there's so much more behind the organization in regards to how they control people through their publications, through the weekly meetings, or when I was growing up, it was 3 meetings a week. So, but I think it's an important thing to get out there and be like, hey, this stuff is extremely damaging. This belief structure, this organization is actively harming people and exploiting them.
Right. Your upcoming album, Agape, which focuses on CSA and Jehovah's Witnesses, is accompanied by 48 pages of leaked internal documents, handwritten lyrics, and laminated mixed media art. I mean, taken in all together, it's a really striking and powerful piece of creative nonfiction, which I feel is emotional as much as it is historical. I'm curious as to where you collected some of your materials for the project. Firstly, the samples on the album, and then the leaked documents, and then also the materials you used for the mixed media art.
So in regards to the samples on agape specifically, I think all of those came from news broadcasts that I found on the depths of YouTube. But in the past, I've also used samples from a whole lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of any documentary about the witnesses I can find. I'll dig through for samples. Any video materials released by the witnesses, I can get my hands on. I'll dig through for materials. In regards to the sample on Living a Nightmare, that whole, it's 151-minute long piece, and for about 45 minutes of that piece, there's a recording that moves in and out of the layers that was all recorded locally at the congregation that I grew up in around the time that I was attending meetings, and that came off of one cassette out of many that I got. It's a box of local recordings. It came from the collection of a member of the witnesses who ended up getting jailed for child pornography. With the documents, all those documents came from this website, jwleaks.org. Basically, it's a group of people who acquire documents from the organization, whether it's letters or internal rules. And I ended up downloading a few hundred documents and dug through them all, poured over them, and whittled it down to those 48 pages. In regards to the mixed media pieces that are coming with the release, the sheets, the base sheets that I used came out of a copy of my book of Bible stories. It was the old Jehovah's Witness book for children, telling Bible stories in their way. There's very colorful, detailed art. And then, so I dug through one of those, chose the best looking pages, the ones that were most aesthetically pleasing, and then I used a bunch of old crayons that I had that actually came out of a Idem Festival release that I have. It came in a cigar box with a bunch of crayons. But I used some crayons from that. There was some ash that I pulled out of my wood stove, and then there's some fake blood I had lying around, spit, hair from my partner, and then I torched the pages a little bit in my parking lot, and then laminated all that together. And there's also some handwritten lyric sheets that come with the release. I don't think I sent you the scans of those, but doing the handwritten lyric sheets took over 12 hours. I don't think I'm ever going to do handwritten lyric sheets again.
It's a nice personal touch, though. I think the people that when people get that release, they'll appreciate that you poured that time and energy into it.
Absolutely, I hope so.
Yeah, and the samples and the documents that you got online, as the internet gets like ever more expansive, and as people get more access to the internet, archiving and like being a historian or like looking for that information, it actually becomes like a lot harder because it becomes buried in like all of the internet. So it takes like an inquiring mind to really like find that stuff and investigate it.
Absolutely, really I mean, it takes hours to find the right sample or the right art or whatever.
100%.
Nothing ever really comes easy,
Right, yeah. It's assumed that like the internet comes with such ease, but yeah, there's a lot of digging that goes into it. But I'm also intrigued by the track titles on Agape, which increase in length as they do in age. So age 7, age 13, age 21. Can you explain a bit the meaning behind that?
It all kind of worked out. I had recorded age 7 and age 13 before I had decided on track titles or whatever. And they ended up being about 7 minutes long and about 13 minutes long. And I was like, all right, if I do a 21-minute long track, that'll fit perfectly on a C42 if I ever end up reissuing it. And also, those numbers kind of line up with when the lyrical content takes place, or would it take place, at age 7. That track is about initial contact between an elder and an abused child. Age 13, the severity increases, as does the lyrical content. And then age 21, it's written from the perspective of a group of elders who are confronting the abused individual, asking them the questions that get asked when concerns about abuse are raised. When someone comes to the elders, like they're taught to, if there's an issue, you go to the elders in the congregation. And with sexual abuse or physical abuse or anything else, the witnesses stick to what they call the two-witness rule. So basically, there needs to be two witnesses, one of which can include the person who has been abused. But if there's not a second person to corroborate their evidence, then the elders will do nothing about it.
Damn.
They also attempt to prevent families and individuals from contacting the authorities, the police, or other organizations about the abuse. They like to keep all of that under wraps.
Right, that I noticed that reading the documents, that they seem like far more concerned about like the story being leaked than like the victim. They spend like far more space talking about like make sure you don't write anything down, make sure like nothing is recorded, etc., to make sure it doesn't like get outside of the community. That was pretty shocking.
Exactly. Yeah, it's much more about them trying to save face in the public image than it is actually helping abused ones, which is absolutely gut-wrenching. I mean, there are, I think it's over 16,000 unreported individuals who have abused children who are still in the witnesses, and that's just in Australia. The state's numbers are much more difficult to put a number on because there's so many different, it's spread all over the place. I mean, they have 7 million members in the witnesses across the world, and there's so much abuse everywhere.
Yeah, it is definitely a gut-wrenching thing to sit through, but it really, the combination of the art and the documents and the noise, it really makes an emotional statement. It really sticks it to you, which is good. It's impactful.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was definitely a difficult topic to cover, but I think it turned out just how I wanted it. So I appreciate the kind words.
Nice. Going back to your, the hours you spent poring over the handwritten lyrics, Agape is not the first of your releases to feature extensive packaging. Your 2020 EP, Father, Son, Spirit, was released on limited 3.5-inch floppy disks with gold foil labels, labeled gift boxes, and neckties. Why put so much attention and energy towards extensive or individualized packaging?
I think overall it just adds to the art. Every release that anyone puts out on physical media or digitally, for that matter. I'm a big proponent of physical media, but every release that gets put out is a piece of art. Every cassette, every record. So you might as well make it more of an art piece. I had all of the floppy disks for Father, Son, Spirit I had picked up out thrifting over the years. I found a USB floppy drive for $2 at Goodwill years ago, and I was just going through organizing my storage area, and I was like, I have all this stuff, I might as well do something with it. And then Father, Son, Spirit all just kind of came together really quickly. I think from beginning to end, from recording to release, it took me maybe a week after I got the gold foil stickers. And in regards to releasing on floppy disk, the Father, Son, Spirit trinity or trilogy of songs just felt right. 9 or 10 minutes of music. It doesn't make a ton of sense to release on a cassette for me. If I could, splitting it up, diminishing the bit rate just enough to fit them onto the floppy disks, it all just felt right.
Nice. Yeah. I like that about like the release itself being an artwork. I feel like that's something that's pretty unique to noise, like small pressings of like highly detailed packaging and stuff. I think that's a really cool aspect of noise culture.
Absolutely, yeah. I adore when anyone puts extra into releases. I have a whole bookshelf dedicated to weird noise packaging. Just if you put something in a folder or an envelope or a wooden box or whatever, for whatever dumb reason, I am going to be much more apt to buy it.
Right. Nice. Yeah. What's like one of the most interesting items you have on your shelf?
I have a big thing for Mansfield Death Trap re-recordings. I actually have this massive, I think it's about 4 feet in length, 3.5 feet, this massive wooden frame hanging on the wall that it has 5 3-inch CDs displayed on it. And he built the frame out of scrap, and it's a gorgeous piece.
Wow.
And his material backs that up too. I have so many indestructible releases that are just gorgeous in every way. Cassettes wrapped in garbage or released in a yarn sock. I really like what Jim does over at Fusty. He did that spray foam release pretty recently.
Nice.
Looking at my shelf right now, and I'm like, there's just so much to talk about. I have a Mansfield Death Trap 6 CD set that comes wrapped in a couple old rusty license plates. I just love cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's wonderful. Speaking of elaborate packaging, interesting packaging, earlier this year you helped compile the massive Pain in New England Noise compilation, which has 61 artists released via 4 labels. That's quite an achievement. I believe it's like an important historical document of a subculture in a specific area at a specific time. Can you tell me a bit about what it was like helping put that together and why you think there's just so much pain in New England?
Yeah, so for anyone listening who isn't familiar with it, the PAIN in the title stands for Power Electronics, Ambient, Industrial, and Noise. but that was kicked off by my good friend Christopher of Wormhout, who also works with Cruel and Unusual Sound. He started a group chat with, it was him, my brother Ian, who works as Peasant Farm, Sam of Pain Chain, Charles of Poverty Line, and Thomas of Straight Panic and Jouissance du Rien. And so he added the six of us to a group chat and was like, hey, let's do a New England comp. I just picked up a bunch of 120-minute long cassettes off of Craigslist, and we were like, all right, sure. And we just kept on adding people to the group chat, and it just kept on expanding and expanding. You know, one person knows another person, and this person knows that person. A lot of I think it was probably about 20 of the people on there had known from either playing Northeast Noise Fest, put together by Steve Davis of Dog and Love Earth Music, or from my time booking shows in central New Hampshire. I had booked for about 3 years before COVID hit, and then I just kind of shut it down. But yeah, so it just grew from there. It comes with an 11 by 17 map that Thomas did that is absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of a tribute to the New England era hospital productions style. My brother did the layout of all the artwork and compiled the pieces of art for the zine. Christopher also helped out with the layout substantially, with ideas and formatting and stuff like that. The whole thing was community funded, and all of the profits, after I've taken care of fees and shipping out artist copies and all that stuff, but all of the profits are going to be ending up in a savings account to help both New England noise and experimental artists who fall on hard times, or help out people touring through New England who need gas money or have car troubles or whatever. There was a tour a couple years ago. I think it was Pain Chain, L'Eclipse New, and Chuck Steak, I think, touring through Canada, and their car broke down, and they couldn't find help anywhere, and for a while, and it really pushed Christopher to be like, hey, like we should do something to help people out when stuff like this happens. And I am so just honored to be able to work on the comp. I handled all of the submissions and the sequencing. We had the cassettes dubbed by Derek Rush of Compactor and Chthonic Streams out of Brooklyn. So they sound absolutely pristine. But yeah, I think we had initially capped the amount of artists at like 40, and then we were like, well, we have this many, and there's still so many people we want to add, so let's just add another 120-minute long cassette to it, do a double cassette, and just keep on adding people until we have to cap it because we're out of time. And 61 was the magic number. There's still so many people I wish we could have added, but we did what we could, and I'm really, really happy with how it came out. In regards to why there's so much experimental and noise and power electronics and industrial ambient, all that stuff in New England, I think a lot of that can kind of stem back to the 80s and the 90s with Ron Lessard at Records in Lowell. I think he was obviously extremely influential. He is a national treasure for sure. I love Ron so much. You had members of the Fluxus movement with Reed Altimus out of Portland. There was there's Strange Maine in Portland, which is where I really first started finding out about noise. I'd go there on lunch breaks during the Jehovah's Witness district conventions up there. That's when I first really started getting into noise, was Strange Maine and Idem Theftable, Shea Mowat, Crank Sturgeon, and then with Providence, there's the Providence scene with Load was huge back in the day. Armageddon has been. I mean, they're more primarily metal and hardcore and stuff, but they're also extremely supportive of noise. And then there's the Cold Spring Hollow crew down in Mass, over in Belchertown. You have Steve Davis of Dog. Diagram A used to run a basement venue that I never got a chance to go to. There's been so many artists over the years who kind of paved the way for so many other people, and all of those people who have been doing it since the 80s or the early 90s, they're all still so supportive, and they've continued to be a part of the community. So the community just keeps on growing and growing and growing, and I am so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Really.
Very nice, very nice. I feel like in a way you've also kind of answered my next question. What I want to ask, like, do you feel there is a sense of community and shared identity behind noise and industrial and modern noise and industrial? And you were talking about, kind of like mutual aid practices with the profits from pain going towards touring artists or artists who are in need, and legacy people in the scene like still being supportive. Do you feel like there's a strong sense of community?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any genre or movement, there's going to be people who keep to themselves and people who work well with other people. I used to be one of those people who kept to themselves, didn't really put myself out there for the first 5 years of making noise. And then once I started putting myself out there, once I started booking shows and playing shows and talking with people and making friends, I realized just how strong and just how necessary connecting and growing along with people is. It's so important. I think the advent of social media really expanded on people being able to connect with each other instead of digging through zines and mailing off postcards or mail art or letters to buy cassettes. It's so much easier to find people with similar interests, a similar love of sound and experimentation. And it's also, like you mentioned earlier, it has created stronger archival abilities in regards to stuff. So it just, it's just a bunch of us weirdos connecting and growing together and processing our emotions or trauma or whatever we're making noise for together, and educating each other about the plight of other groups, or it's such an accepting group of people. If you end up at a Northeast Noise Fest sometime in the future, when those can happen again, it's such a wide range of people from 16 up to 85 ripping noise sets, and they're from all walks of life. You got teachers, you got construction workers, you got restaurant workers, It's all over the place, and but everyone can kind of get together and work together to build something.
For sure.
I don't know. It's such an inspiring thing.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. I was actually last night. I went to the last day of End Times, and yeah, the environment there was just really welcoming. I really I feel like at a lot at other in some other scenes, in some other music scenes, there's like a fair amount of like posturing or like clout chasing. And I feel like in noise, people are just like really happy that you're like there, that you care about the music, that you're like hanging out. It's really nice. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. For the most part, people are okay with playing a show to 5 people or just other artists or whatever, because it's much more about expressing oneself than it is like trying to get an ego boost.
Right.
There isn't as much ego in the noise scene. I feel like I went to a lot of prog metal shows back in the day with an ex-partner, and man, those crowds and that scene is just not what I want out of any out of the scene. Sorry, prog metal fans.
I didn't expect that kind of attitude from prog metal fans. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, for sure.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, including Living a Nightmare and Agape. Are there any projects or goals you have for the future we should know about?
I just sent off material for a split with Machine Moon out of Syracuse. I have a split with Nico Daruma that has been in the works for a while that I'm hoping to tie up by the end of the year. Recently recorded some collaborations with 7YYY, 7YYY out of Dover. The guy behind Swamp Temple, who's local to me, is a black metal project that did some ambient dungeon synthy stuff for Pain in New England and guested on The Destroying Angel. Did another collab with Nico Tracy of Angel's Breath and Zach Dion of This Is Not Okay, that we're hoping to get released at some point. See, with the label that I've been working on with my brother and Charles of Poverty Line and Christopher of Wormhout, we're going to be doing a batch release of the special edition of Agape, Peasant Farm Poverty Line split C30, I think. Wormhout Pain Appendix split, and a full length from my beloved friend SBTV OH. Also, just tying up a new tape that's going to be coming on Dough Girl by the end of the year. Yeah, there's more stuff, but I mean that's I could go on for a while.
Nice.
The primary goal in the next couple of years, though, is to get up closer to my brother in northern Vermont. He and his wife just bought a house. They're going to be doing like a basement venue. I'm hoping to open up like a media store, records, cassettes, VHS, DVDs, mainly focusing on the noise, experimental, weird stuff, some black metal and grindcore, noisecore, stuff like that, horror, exploitation, sleaze movies, stuff like that. And, just looking to just keep on building the community, keep on encouraging people, keep on getting new people, fresh blood into the community. I love finding more people and introducing them to this kind of stuff, or helping them helping them grow as artists.
For sure.
But yeah, actually, just real quick, I want to go back to Pain in New England. And I just wanted to shout out a few of the artists on it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go for it.
Hell, I could just run down the list. Like I have so many positive things to say about all of these people. Ben Flagg of Chord is a champion, and I absolutely love them. Dee Thrice out of Manchester, New Hampshire is incredible. I 100% recommend seeing her live if you get a chance. She does this beautiful and menacing, somewhat sensual glossolalia and electroacoustic stuff. This Is Not Okay out of Lowell. Zach is a fucking banger. I absolutely adore Zach. Diagram A, everyone knows Diagram A. His track is killer. Yeah, I really could just run down this list of 61 artists and say something positive about them. So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to take up all of your time. But I hope everyone picks up a copy and listens to it and falls in love with every single one of the artists on here. The one that I'm championing the most out of everyone is this local duo called Fortune Tellers of the Illuminati, and they are this bizarre. It's my friend Andrew lives right down the road from me. He's playing bass and running drum machine, and his friend's kid, I think he was 13, maybe 14 when they recorded the material for the compilation. But it's him playing saxophone and doing this bizarre post-punky improvisational yelling and muttering song about it's a love song about Ted Bundy, and I adore it for whatever reason. It is wonderful. I don't know. Every single artist on this thing is a ripper or a banger or whatever you want to call it. There's not a single bad track on this thing.
Lovely.
I could talk about the fucking thing for hours, honestly.
I'm very excited to get my hands on it. Yeah. Well, yeah. We've reached time. Thanks for sharing. Lots of love to everybody in the community. Lots of love to all the people on Pain, for sure. That's great. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.